Welcome to Aging Insights. I'm Melissa Chalker, Deputy Director of the New Jersey Foundation for Aging. The Foundation's mission is to enable seniors to live with independence and dignity in their communities. Aging Insights is produced by the New Jersey Foundation for Aging to provide information and resources to boomers, seniors, and caregivers. The primary focus of the program is to bring our viewers important information and connect people to community-based programs. Today, we're going to focus on Social Security and all the great programs that they provide. Many of you are familiar with retirement benefits, but Social Security has many programs that help retirees, the disabled, and their families. We'll go over some of the standard rules and information, but we'll also delve into some of the lesser-known facts about Social Security programs. With me today to do that are two representatives from the Social Security Administration, David Vinokurov, Trenton District Manager, and Carl Robinson, New Jersey Public Affairs Specialist. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me today. I really appreciate your time. I think this is a great topic for us to get into to make sure our viewers know all there is to know about Social Security, at least what we can cover today in our time together. David, I do want to start with you because, as I said in the open, many people think about Social Security in terms of a retirement benefit, but indeed it does provide a large number of programs to many people, families included. I think you've referred to it before as a family insurance program, which I think is a great way to describe it. So given that, can you give me some statistics about who is covered under Social Security or who's receiving Social Security?
Sure, Melissa. This August 14th, we celebrated our 80th birthday. Yes. The act was signed on August 14th, 1935. Mm-hmm. Currently, we have over 59 million beneficiaries in the United States. Mm-hmm. About 1.9 million of those are children. Mm-hmm. Here in New Jersey, we have about 1.5 million people that are receiving Social Security benefits. Sure. And we provide about 24 billion in annual income through these Social Security benefits. So it really benefits the entire family, and that's why we like to call it an insurance program for the entire family, not just a worker. Sure,
yeah, I mean, you can see that based on the statistics you've given us. I mean, that's quite a lot of people that will be covered. We're going to talk a little bit more later on in the show particularly about how children and families are affected by benefits and what benefits they can receive. But I would like to start and describe to our audience a little bit about retirement benefits so we can that's what people are most familiar with, so let's get that out of the way and go over that. Let's start with, who's eligible for retirement benefits under Social Security?
Well, for retirement benefits, you have to earn credits, and you can earn up to a maximum of 4 credits per year. Okay. Currently, a credit is $1,220 per credit for a maximum of $4,880 for the year. Okay. You need a minimum of 40 credits in your lifetime or 10 years worth of work in order to minimally qualify for retirement benefits.
Okay. Sometimes you hear people talk about quarters. Is that the same thing as credits?
It is.
It is. Okay.
It is. Quarters and credits are interchangeable, and we used to use quarters, now we use credits. Credits, okay. But later on, Carl will go into a little more in depth.
I was going to say, we're going to explain credits and or quarters a little bit later, but I just wanted to clarify for people who might be familiar with hearing quarters, let them know that when you say credits, it's the same thing.
Same
right?
thing, okay. Precisely.
Perfect. So given that, people that are eligible based on that information, how would one apply for that benefit?
Well, our most convenient way of applying for any and all Social Security benefits is right online. People would go on there, and there are different tabs for the type of task or benefit that you'd like to apply, whether it's retirement, disability, children's benefits, things like that. So that's the most convenient way of doing things. You can also apply by telephone or in person. Okay. We still have 24 offices, pretty much one tied to every county in New Jersey.
Right. So in New Jersey, there are 24 Social Security offices. Correct. And how would people find out where the one closest to them is?
It's right online. If they would go right online, they can click on Find an Office, put in their zip code, and that will come up with the office closest to theirs.
And if they called the 800 number?
They would call the 1-800-772-1213, and they would get additional information, possibly even file over the phone without having to come in. Right. Or if they still like to have that face-to-face interview, they can make an appointment to come into one of the local 24 offices.
Right. And would the offices prefer that someone have an appointment rather than just show up at the office?
It makes it certainly makes it a lot easier, and we make every effort to see those people right on time.
Great. And I understand that there's a lot you can do on your website now. There's even something called a My Social Security account. Can you explain to us a little bit about how what that is and how that works?
Absolutely. And thank you for bringing that up, because that's a wonderful new feature that Social Security has come up with. It's a way to track your earnings while you're working. It's a way to make sure that all your earnings that you've earned through your W-2 or 1099 earnings and that you report to IRS are credited to your Social Security accounts.
Right.
And that's how Carl's going to go into a little more in depth how that's figured for your retirement.
Right.
But that plays into your disability benefits, retirement benefits, spousal benefits, children's, and everything else.
Right.
The benefits of My Social Security are numerous. If you receive benefits, you can change your direct deposit, update your address, change your telephone number, look at all the Medicare options that you're receiving, and file your claim right from that account.
Right.
It's also a great safety tool in terms of protecting your identity.
Okay.
Everybody should sign up for this account. Anybody that's over the age of 18 should establish a My Social Security account for various purposes, the main being protecting your identity. Social Security has fortunately never been hacked by people that have established their own legitimate account.
Right.
You get to select your own user ID and password, and then it opens up a whole world to do right online.
That's
your
amazing.
business.
So I want to hit on two things that you said. One, people mostly probably, as I said, think of Social Security in terms of retirement benefits. And so they might think, oh, that's just for older people, so I don't need to worry about that yet. But you're really advising that anyone who's 18 and older of a working age can go on to Social Security and create a My Social Security account.
That's correct. From the time you start working, whether it's a paper route, a lemonade stand, as long as you're paying FICA taxes on it, your earnings will be credited to your account.
Okay.
And you should track your lifetime earnings throughout. So right at age 18, as soon as the person turns age 18, Carl likes to say, right after the birthday party, you go ahead and you open up one of these accounts, and you can track your earnings and make sure that everything is correct without having to wait 40 or 50 years when you're going to be retired.
Right. And then the other thing I wanted to touch on is that you mentioned creating your own username and password. So you would go on to socialsecurity.gov, and you would click on the My Social Security account, and something would pop up and ask you, what type of information are they asking you for to verify who you are?
That's a great question. It asks you a couple of out-of-wallet questions, very personal, that hopefully you would only know. Okay. What high school you went to, what banks you bank with, who holds your mortgage, how much is your rent, how much is your mortgage, things that really, if you've been a victim previously of identity theft, the crooks would not know the answer to. So we identify you through those ways, including some other ways that we have internally information. And once you answer those questions correctly, we let you see all there is to see about yourself.
Great. That's amazing. I really think that's a great benefit for people to go on, and they can, as you said, track their work history. They can apply for benefits. They can change settings and things in their account directly through that. So I think it's a great benefit that Social Security provides, all that you can do on the website. So as we're talking about that, and we started to talk a little bit about how people are eligible and what benefits are based on. So Carl, I do want to turn to you and ask particularly about what benefit amounts are based on. And so that's going to take us a little bit more in describing quarters, or what you now call credit.
We set the stage that Social Security is a social insurance program, which really covers workers from the very beginning. So interestingly enough, Social Security is based on lifetime earnings.
Right.
So for somebody reaching retirement age, it's based on 35 of your highest years. After we adjust those years for the ravages of the rise in cost of wages for inflation. So the years that you're earned in your teens, in your 20s, your 30s will be indexed to bring it up in today's levels.
Right.
So we take the 35 years and we come up with an average monthly indexed earnings. But interestingly enough, workers, when they first start out, what is lifetime earnings? For somebody under 24, it's as little as a year and a half.
Sure.
And as David mentioned, the credits of coverage are $1,220 in 2015. So you have high school students or college students, they need as little as a year and a half to protect themselves against the loss of wages from disability.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. I mean, you don't really think of it in terms of that. You think of, oh, it's counting my work history, and when I get to retirement age, I apply, and it's based on that. But even that amount is protecting you against disability, correct?
Absolutely. Not only that, it protects the workers and their families against lost wages due to death, disability, or retirement, with the workers' dependents and their survivors.
Right. So our audience, as I said, is probably most familiar with retirement benefits, but they're also probably familiar with the idea that disability benefits are available for folks through Social Security. So can you explain to us a little bit about how that works and how it might be different than retirement?
Surely, and I'd like to do that. It's still based on lifetime earnings, and a person has to have what we call a current connection to the workforce.
Okay.
For younger people, it's a minimum of a year and a half of work. For people over 31, it's what we call 10 out of the last 20 out of the last 40 quarters.
Oh, okay.
So you have to have a current connection. You have to be fully insured based on working under Social Security covered employment. And our definition of disability is that a person is so disabled that it keep that individual from doing substantial work for a period of a year or more.
Right. And similarly to retirement benefits, they would come to the office, go online to apply for that benefit as well?
Absolutely. And online is a great way of filing. Right on our website, ssa.gov, because you can start the medical procedures. You protect yourself against loss of benefits due to retroactivity, and that'll alert our office that there's a claim.
Right. And when you talk about this disability benefit, are we talking about a short-term disability or a permanent disability? Is there a difference in the benefit?
No, there's not. Basically, we have one definition of disability, and it's based primarily on the fact that a person's not able to do substantial work for a year or more.
Okay.
So it's one definition, and of course, according to the severity, it may last a lot longer than a year, but our basic definition is that it must last at least a year or more.
So it's really a long-term, more of a long-term disability. Workers' compensation or other New Jersey
would be the
has the short-term disability, but this is more, like Carl enunciated, it's for 12 months or longer, or, God forbid, result in death.
Right. Great. So thank you for that clarification. I think that's great. Yeah. The other benefit I want to touch on that is probably something people are familiar with is survivor benefits. And so that's something, right, that people who have a deceased worker, their family is eligible for a benefit under Social Security, correct?
That's correct, Melissa. And Social Security benefits actually, as we mentioned, protects the workers and their dependents. And survivors. So those dependents can be the children for a retired worker, and then in survivors' cases, those same children are protected. A child, in order to be eligible, has to be either under age 18 or 18 to 19 and still in high school, or we have, which is a very important element of our program, a dependent or a survivor child could be a child at any age, as long as that child was consistently disabled prior to age 22.
Okay.
So at those key points in time, when the worker retires, when the worker becomes disabled, or God forbid, when the worker's deceased, that's where those dependent benefits and those survivors' benefits can come into play.
I just did want to clarify for people, because I think that is interesting, that when someone passes on and their children can receive a benefit, it's not just minor children, as you explained, 18 and under, but then those 18 and 19 if they're in high school, and then particularly what I think people might not be aware of is that adult disabled children, someone who was established as disabled prior to the age of 22, is that correct?
That's correct.
Would be able to receive a survivor benefit.
Absolutely.
Okay. And can you explain to us what a survivor benefit might look like? Is it something that they receive throughout their lifetime? Is it a lump sum payment? How does that work?
For all Social Security benefits, including survivors' benefits and retirement benefits, that benefit lasts throughout the lifetime as long as that person is still disabled, hasn't recovered, or some other terminating events. So that benefit can never outlast the lifetime as long as the person meets the basic eligibility standards.
Right. So I know that we mentioned earlier in the program delving into some lesser known facts and things about Social Security. I think we're on the edge of that, and so I did want to go back to what you mentioned also in terms of minor or disabled children receiving a benefit, because it's not just a survivor benefit, but if a retiree is receiving their benefit, if they've they're eligible, that their family is also eligible if there are minor children. And I think I certainly didn't know that, and I consider myself someone who's pretty knowledgeable about this stuff. So for our audience, they might not be aware that if they're a retired person receiving a benefit and they have minor children still, those children would be eligible for a benefit. Is that correct?
That's correct, Melissa. And as we celebrate our 80th birthday, one of the things that haven't changed about Social Security, it's replacement of lost income for those children that we talked about. Again, at those 3 key points in times when the worker's retired, disabled, or deceased. So you could have also widows or widowers, or even spouses of living wage earners. If they have children in their care, they can get dependent benefits as well. So in order for a young spouse to get benefits, he or she must have a child in their care who's under age 16, or if over 16, entitled to disability benefits, a disabled child.
Gotcha. David, you want to?
Yeah, and I just want to bring it back to the My Social Security account.
Yes.
All of these lesser known benefits that Carl's talking about are actually explained in the My Social Security right online.
Wonderful.
And it'll even give them an idea of how much the child or the spouse might be able to receive. So let's say a worker becomes disabled, it will tell them, this is how much your wife might be able to get, this is how much your minor children might be able to get. If, God forbid, you become disabled or deceased, it'll also tell them exactly how much they might be due, which is a wonderful way, again, of finding out these lesser known benefits, but also getting a dollar amount so that possibly you can plan for your financial future.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point. And I did want to ask you, Carl, the benefit that the children and the spouse receive is also based on that worker's history, right? So that's how it's calculated, the same way their own benefit would be calculated?
Correct.
Is it a percentage of that?
Yes, it is. For living dependents, it's generally based for children at 50%. For for deceased children, it would be 75%, subject to a family maximum.
Right.
And what's important for your viewing audience to remember is that it never lowers the worker's amount.
Oh, okay.
So there's no reason not to disclose benefits.
Sure. I think that's important information to hit. I did want to dig a little bit deeper into the spousal benefits because we've referenced it a couple times here, and so I just want to talk about the different scenarios in which spouses would be eligible for benefits. We've already talked about, as if the retiree is disabled or deceased, that the spouse will be eligible, and you could see that in the My Social Security account. But if both the worker and the spouse are retired, they are both eligible for their own benefit if they both have a work history. But then a spouse might be, there are some caveats to that. I'm probably not explaining it well enough. You could probably do a better job than I'm doing.
No, you're doing a very good job. And it's a very, caveats, as you would say, is the proper terminology. If you look at spouse's benefit, a spouse can get benefits at any age if she or he has that young child or that disabled child that we spoke about in his or her care. But a spouse can get benefits at age 62. Now, some of the caveats about spouse's benefits is that if a spouse is already receiving, if the worker's receiving and you came in to file for spouse's benefits based on your age, it's a prescribed order in which you'd get your retirement benefit first and then any spouse's benefits if you're entitled. You don't have a choice as to which you take. The caveat that's popular in the media and really fully displayed and disclosed on our website, ssa.gov, is that if a spouse waits till he or she is full retirement age, then a spouse can restrict it to get benefits as a spouse only, which would be half of the worker's amount at the worker's full retirement age. And the reason people do that is that we make that distinction where a person has 35 lifetime earnings. What full retirement age, which is 66 for people born from 1943 to 1954, their full retirement is age 66. And that's when somebody would get 100% of their Social Security amount. But a person can delay taking benefits beyond their full retirement age because it increases incrementally higher for each month between full retirement age and age 70. So one of the things that a person could do is wait till full retirement age, claim benefits as a spouse, get half of the spouse, and then let his or her own benefit accrue. For a person who's 66 to 70, at 8% a year, it'd be 132% higher.
Wow.
Or 32%
Right,
higher.
right.
Yeah.
So I do want to continue to talk about spousal benefits, but I do want to make sure that people understood what you were saying about when you can receive benefits, because we failed to mention that when we were talking about it earlier. So you can apply early if you want, but you receive a decreased benefit. Is that
Right.
correct?
That's correct.
So at what age would be considered early?
For a spouse has to be at least age 62.
Okay.
So this is a complicated strategy
Yeah.
that does involve caveat. So what we recommend for your viewing audience to do is to know that that caveat exists,
Right.
and that they plan for this ahead of time. That's the key to all our benefits, to go
Right.
on our website, ssa.gov, plan for the different benefits, and even if they don't quite understand the different options that they had, to remember that at full retirement age, they do have this extra option to choose from one benefit or the other. But what they need to do is they need to do that planning now. That's why people really need to go on that My Social Security account, know that there's different options at different points in time.
Right. I think that's great to know. I do want to give another plug for that My Social Security account, because I think there's so much that you can do, because obviously we can't explain everything as we sit here together today, but it's good for people to know that they can contact Social Security and answer some of these questions. If they're watching this and they say, well, I don't really understand that,
Right.
they can get in touch and find out the answer, and then they can also create an account and see how it would specifically affect them, correct?
Not only that, they can also use the financial calculators
Okay.
that are found on that My Social Security account, which would give them a breakdown of whether they want to claim early at age 62, full retirement age, which is age 66 or 70. So
Right.
it actually puts a dollar figure for them at what they might expect to get from their own, based on their lifetime earnings history
Right.
that Carl just explained.
Right. Great. I think that's an excellent clarification. I do want to get back to spouses for 1 second,
Sure.
because I also want to make sure people realize that when you're a widow and you're receiving benefits, it's not just for folks who were married until their spouse was deceased, but if you were divorced from a spouse, you're still eligible for benefits. Is that correct?
That's correct, Melissa. Both for spouses and widows or widowers. If you were married at least 10 years and met all the other factors of entitlement, you could get benefits as a divorced spouse or a divorced widow. Interestingly enough, the age that a widow can get benefits is as early as age 60,
Right.
as opposed to 62 for
Okay.
spouses or somebody who's retired.
Right.
And we also have disabled widow and widowers benefits
Okay.
as early as age 50.
Oh.
So what a person can do is use a strategy if they're concurrently entitled, say, based on their age for widow's benefits and retirement benefits, they can elect to take the widow's benefit first. For example, there's different scenarios, and each case is different, which is why they have to go on the website and make their own individual
Right.
decisions. But you can switch then, unlike spouses that we refer to as living spouses.
Right.
For a widow, there's no restriction. You can take one and then switch to the other.
Oh, I see.
So
So there are so many
There's so many,
scenarios.
yes.
So if people go on and create a My Social Security account and they're looking at all this stuff and they're really confused, they can certainly call and ask questions to
Absolutely.
clarify. Because
Sure.
I can imagine sitting in front of the computer and reading this and trying to figure out, well, which benefit am I eligible
Sure.
for, that this can get confusing. So it's good to know that they can pick up the phone. And what was that?
1-800-772-1213,
Okay.
and we're open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday.
Wonderful. So I want to make sure people know that they don't have to, while the website is great and creating your own account is fantastic, it's great to know that you can also pick up the phone and get these questions answered. So you mentioned disabled spouses and applying at 50. So that's if the person themselves is disabled, not if the worker was disabled, right?
It would be based on the widower's disability.
Gotcha. And then the other clarification I wanted to make is we did talk about divorced spouses receiving a benefit. If the worker has a current spouse, the current spouse and the divorced spouse can still
Absolutely.
both receive a
Both
benefit,
be entitled.
and it still doesn't affect the worker's own
No.
benefit, as we talked
Correct.
about earlier with children, that when they're receiving it, it doesn't affect the worker. So that's the same is true in that instance?
Absolutely so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
See,
it never
there's so
affects
much
the
to know.
workers,
Never
and this is
affects
why
the
it's a
worker.
wonderful insurance program
Yes.
for the entire family.
Absolutely. So we've really are covering a lot of stuff, which I think is great for people to know. Are there other things that you would want people to know in particular about Social Security?
I think the thing that I would advise people the most is do your planning now. If it sounds confusing to some of the seniors who are really thinking perhaps more about some of the younger folks, the time to start planning Social Security is when you start working.
Sure.
That's why we go into the high school, the colleges, ask those students to sign up for the My Social Security account and to have a sense of financial literacy. So it's very important that each person is proactive, because each scenario with some of the strategies that we just touched upon, each one will affect a worker differently. So what's right for one person may not be so for
Right.
the other. So go on our website, ssa.gov, and come in early. Get your information early, because in very few instances can you have retroactivity to benefits.
Right. Absolutely. David, any last thoughts?
Again, just to echo what Carl is saying, the most convenient and easiest way to get the information is straight from our website. And I know you have a show coming up on Medicare. One of the ways that people really need to plan is also to file for Medicare. And that's still age 65, even though the Social Security retirement age has moved up.
Right.
Medicare is still 65, so they need to consider Medicare at least a year before turning age 65. And you can do that right on our website as well, because that's where you file for Medicare, actually through Social Security.
Right. Thank you for pointing that out, because I know, the two programs are closely tied together, and so for
Yes.
people to realize that they can also get information about Medicare and how to plan for that and for Social Security right through your website is great. Before we leave each other, I do want to touch on one other thing, which is that sometimes folks, especially older individuals, are a little bit leery of the internet, but your website is completely secure. We talked earlier about the security of creating your own password and identifying yourself, so we do want to assure people not to worry about going and putting your personal information online on the computer, right?
That's correct, Melissa. We've never been breached. As long as people have established their own accounts with their own personal user ID and password, and please do not share that user ID and password. That's a very critical thing to do. You establish it in your own name, not for somebody else, and you have rest assured that your privacy is secured with Social Security.
Right, and to make sure that you are on the legitimate website, which is ssa.gov.
Correct,
right?
either ssa.gov or socialsecurity.gov.
Okay.
Please try not to Google us, but go straight to that
Go straight to
website,
those.
www.socialsecurity.gov or www.ssa.gov. They're both interchangeable, but it brings you to the official federal government Social Security website.
Wonderful. That's terrific, terrific information. Thank you both for sharing your time with us today. Aging Insights is produced by the New Jersey Foundation for Aging and is made possible by donations to the foundation. To become a sponsor of For Aging Insights programs, please visit our website at www.njfoundationforaging.org or give us a call in the office at 609-421-0206. All of our previous shows may be viewed on our website. We want to remind you to find out about senior services in your area. Please contact your county office on aging. Those numbers can be found on our website, or you may call the state hotline, which is 1-877-222-3737. Thank you for watching this episode of Aging Insights, and remember, aging is everyone's business.